Hello, this is Yvette coming to you today with lesson 4, all about diet and exercise, and that they're not necessarily the route to our healing. Last time in lesson 3, we talked a little bit about community and how community is so important, and this was so integral in my healing to help me obtain healthier habits. And so the power of the group is really true, and I hope that some of this is resonating with you. But before I go into this whole lesson around diet and exercise, I want to talk to you a little bit about what happened to me. So in 2010, I was diagnosed with osteoarthritis, spinal myelopathy, for which they told me that I'd have to have surgery within a couple of years. And I was also diagnosed with adrenal fatigue and thyroid nodules. And I was told that I'd have to go on medication for adrenal fatigue and that within a couple of years, I would have to be on medication for hypothyroidism. So some of this rang true to me because my mom had had similar surgery and she was on medication for hypothyroidism. And so I'm thinking to myself that these are my genes. I'm a product of my mom and that I might end up like her. And the other side of that was I knew that that wasn't what I really wanted. And there was something deep down inside of me saying that there might be another way because I was getting multiple opinions. So I began to heal myself. Fortunately, I had peers who had contacts who knew a lot about complementary modalities. And so I did change my diet. I did change my lifestyle to a certain effect so that I could really heal better my body. And a lot of that actually worked in many ways. Then in 2018, my mom passed away from pancreatic cancer. And so this really rang very heavy in my heart. And I also began to think a little bit differently, that there was another piece of the puzzle missing as well that I needed to explore. And because I knew that genes could be influenced, I continued down on this journey. But I still at times would struggle with emotional eating bouts. I would still struggle with some stress and that tendency to go, 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 do. And then when I began to come into this whole time of perimenopause and menopause, some of the things that I was doing wasn't really helping me in the same way. There was kind of a shift. Some of the traditional things of exercise and diets weren't working in the same way, and I needed to make some additional changes. So some of you know that I've been studying yoga for many years. And when I began to study yoga, I also began to study something called Ayurveda, which is the sister science of yoga. And so in Western society, we are taught that when there's something wrong with us, we can take a pill, we can change our diet, and we can exercise more. We're also taught to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner with snacks in between. And so as I began to learn a little bit about this, I also knew, which I think some of you might have read in my book already, is that not all calories are the same. So you could have an apple, you could have a glass of Coke with approximately the same small glass of Coke with the same amount of calories. And they're not going to be digested in the same way and processed in the same way or assimilated in the same way in your body. And so even though I was eating organically, I was exercising, I was meditating, I wasn't necessarily getting the results that I wanted. And by Western standards, I was healthy. But I didn't really embrace the perspective that there might be something more or something that I might be missing. So I started to begin to study this whole concept, or this science rather, of Ayurveda, which is a complementary science and modality and system that is about 5,000 years old. And the premise behind Ayurveda, not only is it the sister science of yoga, but that we are in connection, our body, with the ecosystem, with the cycles of day, with the cycles of night, with the cycles of the moon and the sun, and with the seasons. And if we all live in rhythm of this, then our health is in balance. And when we become off rhythm and not living in balance, not living in rhythm with these cycles of nature, then we are off balance, and that our bodies can move into a state of disease, or even more chronic illness. And so there's a rhythm to Ayurveda, rhythm of the cycles of the day, the night, the seasons. And when we're living in accordance with that, that's really when we thrive. And so my revelation here was that even though I was eating healthy, I was still experiencing bouts of emotional eating. I was still also following that tradition of eating 3 meals a day and snacking. And so I wasn't necessarily giving my body the proper amount of time to digest, assimilate, and absorb these nutrients. I wasn't really taking advantage of the power of the pause so that my body could just be still and allow other processes in my body to take effect, which is ultimately allowing it to do what it needs to do in the middle of the night, detoxify, regenerate the cells, because it might have been during those pause times, I might have been eating too much. And my body was too focused on digesting the food than being able to do the other activities that it really needed to be focusing on. And so Ayurveda just opens up a window that there's much more than just conventional medicine. Each of us are born with a constitution, a dosha. So we each have a different body type, a different personality. And with that, they're put into these different energies, these energies of kapha, pitta, and kapha. We're a combination of those when we're born. And what happens is we begin to live life, we can go a little out of balance. And our constitution is really made up of a result of the health of our parents, the health of their parents, how their state of being, their state of stress when we are created, and also as we're carried in the womb, and ultimately when we're born. So that can go out of balance. It can be out of balance when we're born, and then kind of goes out of balance when we begin to live our life. But what Ayurveda does is gives us the tools to bring us back into balance. And so what I began to do was actually change some of the foods that I was eating, changing the times that I was eating, changing some of the exercises that I was doing, so that everything that I was doing was more in the rhythm of the cycles of day and night. And so I was finding that I felt more in balance, more healthy, more energized. I was sleeping better. And so ultimately, I really haven't felt any of the symptoms of perimenopause or going into menopause at all. I am feeling really well. I'm sleeping well. I feel more balanced and ease. And I don't really have any anxiety anymore. So Ayurveda is really powerful. It's also really simple. And you can have this too. I think it's actually one of the best kept secrets out there. So as you know, I'm really passionate about helping women get what they want in terms of their health and their well-being. So if you're suffering from stress, anxiety, overwhelm, suffering from hormonal imbalances, inability to sleep, or unable to shift that extra weight that you have, Ayurveda can help. It's not all about diet. It's not all about exercise. Calories in doesn't necessarily equal calories out. There's so many other things to take into account. So hoping that you're a little bit more curious about how this could help you. So let's get on a call and see if this might work for you. Putting the link below.